Can you believe that in one of the most developed countries in the world, there is a place where people pray, work, and even live in spaces that resemble caves? And what about a golf course without a single tuft of grass, where players carry their own mats to hit their shots? It sounds absurd, but it's part of everyday life in this unique place. Today, Bello Mundo takes you to Coober Pedy, Australia, an entire town built underground, full of secrets, traditions, and a way of life that goes far beyond what you can imagine. Number 1. Location and geographical data. Coober Pedy lies in the South Australian Outback, in the heart of the famous Outback. The town is about 850 kilometers north of Adelaide, which, for those who don't know, is the capital of South Australia and one of the country's largest cities, known for its beaches, vineyards, and vibrant cultural scene. The region is marked by a vast expanse of arid land, dry hills, and an open sky that seems to have no end. This desert landscape creates a fascinating yet unforgiving environment, making the place a symbol of extreme adaptation. During the summer, temperatures often exceed 50 degrees Celsius, while the nights can be surprisingly cold, forcing the inhabitants to come up with creative solutions to survive the climate. And guess what solution the locals came up with? Going underground. And we'll tell you all about it in a moment. But first, let's go back in time to understand how this place became home to so many. Number 2. History. It all began in 1917, when a young man called Willie Hutchison, aged just 14, made a discovery that would change the fate of the region forever. While accompanying his father and 2 partners on an expedition through southern Australia in search of gold, the group didn't find what they wanted. But on February 1st, Willie decided to venture beyond the camp to look for water, disobeying his father's orders, and ended up getting lost. By nightfall, the adults were worried about the boy's disappearance, but hours later he returned with a smile on his face and something else in his pockets. Opals, precious stones that date back millions of years and were highly prized by ancient kings. In addition, Willie found fresh water in the region, a rare and valuable resource in that arid territory. The young man's discovery spread quickly, attracting miners from all over the world in search of fortune. The fascination with opals didn't stop there. To this day, legends and stories about these stones attract explorers and tourists from all over the world. But how did these stones end up in the Australian desert? Simple. You've heard that the Sahara, before it became the desert, was a green savanna with lakes, rivers, trees, and animals, such as elephants, giraffes, rhinos, and hippos, right? Well, here on this piece of Australian soil, it was no different. This region was sea. Over 100 million years ago, the area where Coober Pedy is located was part of the Great Eromanga Sea, which covered Central Australia. As the sea dried up, acidic fluids mixed with the quartz-rich silica sand, forming the precious opals that can be worth thousands of dollars today. Not to mention that this gemstone also carries fascinating legends. It is said that by wrapping an opal in a fresh laurel leaf, one could become invisible, a tale that enchanted the kings of antiquity. For the Aborigines, the origin of opals is even more magical. According to a legend, the creator of the world descended to Earth on a rainbow to deliver a message of peace. And where he stepped, the stones took on all the colors of the rainbow, giving rise to opals. Today, Coober Pedy is known as the opal capital of the world, but it's not just because of the precious stone that the place attracts attention. Number 3. Underground houses. With around 3,000 inhabitants, the place impresses not only with its desolate landscape of sand pyramids, but also with the white tubes that rise from the ground. Sounds strange, right? But these pipes are actually ventilation shafts for the underground houses, the famous dugouts. They ensure air circulation, relieving the suffocating heat that can turn the desert into a real oven. But why, after all, have so many people decided to bury themselves underground? The answer goes back to the end of the First World War, when soldiers experienced in mining and used to extreme conditions returned home. Upon arriving in Coober Pedy, these veterans applied their skills to create underground dwellings that would protect them from the extreme desert temperatures. And so a city was born underground. But if you think these houses are just simple holes in the ground, you need to review your concepts. They're not simple at all. Number 4. Life underground. With houses built at least 4 meters deep to prevent landslides, residents not only find relief from the scorching desert heat, but also enjoy a more economical and sustainable life. Thanks to solar and wind energy, the city is able to generate all the electricity it needs. Meanwhile, those living above ground pay dearly for essential air conditioning, an unnecessary luxury for those living in the dugouts. And the benefits don't stop there. Underground homes are much more affordable. A 3-bedroom home in Coober Pedy costs, on average, around $30,000 US. Compared to Adelaide, where a similar property can exceed $600,000, living underground is a real bargain. Another advantage of this type of housing is that insects don't dare enter these dark, cool houses. When you get to the door, the flies disappear because, as we all know, they're not big fans of the dark and cold. What's more, underground living protects against noise and light pollution, offering a peace that's hard to find elsewhere. And if you're wondering about earthquakes, the rocky structure also guarantees extra safety. In the 1960s and 1970s, the expansion of houses was done with shovels, picks, and in some cases, explosives. Today, industrial machines can excavate up to 6 cubic meters of rock per hour, which means that a spacious house can be built in less than a month. But if the extension is simple, all it takes is a pocket knife or even your fingernail to scrape away the rock, as it is very soft. There are stories of great luck, such as the man who, while installing a shower, found an opal worth almost $1 million. With this ease of excavation, the dugouts are not only comfortable, many are veritable underground mansions with swimming pools, games rooms, and bathrooms worthy of a luxury magazine. But it's not just houses that are hidden underground in Coober Pedy. Number 5. Religious structures. Even after the opal rush has calmed down, Coober Pedy is still going strong. People of 45 nationalities live underground, and it's not just houses that make up the city's subterranean world. There, between corridors carved out of the rock, you'll find bars, hotels, restaurants, art galleries, stores, and, of course, churches to suit all tastes. Want an example? One of the oldest is the Catholic Church of St. Peter and St. Paul, excavated in 1967. It's a simple, cozy place with sandstone walls, perfect for the faithful to escape the heat and find some peace. But the champion of grandeur is the Serbian Orthodox Church, built in 1993. Carved out of the rock, it has 3 naves of different heights, a traditional altar, and religious icons that are given a special glow by the soft lighting that highlights every detail of the sandstone walls. There is also the Anglican Church, also underground and simply decorated, ideal for moments of prayer. And finally, there's the Lutheran Church, with its cool and peaceful chapel where services and community meetings are held. Number 6. Museum. Among the must-see attractions in Coober Pedy is the fascinating underground museum. That's right, a museum underground. The Umuna, Opal Mine and Museum is a deep dive into the history of opals and local culture. Housed in an old mine, it takes visitors through original tunnels and displays details about the formation of opals, mining techniques, and the lives of the first miners who braved the desert heat. There, you'll also find replicas of underground dwellings, collections of opals and fossils that make the experience even more unique. If that's not enough, the museum also has a store selling exclusive jewelry and rough or cut opals, offering the chance to take home a piece of Coober Pedy. But as we've said before, the stone is precious, so to get your hands on a piece of it, you'll need a credit card or a hefty bank account, because it's not cheap. Number 7. Golf course without grass. And if we're talking about curiosities and tourism, another place that can't be left off this list is the golf course, which, by the way, is one of the most peculiar golf courses in the world. If you're used to lush, green courses, get ready for something completely different. The Coober Pedy golf course doesn't have a single tuft of grass. Instead, players need to bring synthetic grass mats to use when starting their shots. The rest of the course is made up of stones, sand, and dust, creating an experience that is, to say the least, unique. The rules of golf at Coober Pedy have also been adjusted to cope with the extreme environment. For example, matches usually take place at night, under starlight, and with fluorescent balls to avoid the intense heat of the day. In addition, the pitch is always subject to the harsh conditions of the desert, such as strong winds and aridity, which make the game even more challenging. Number 8. Origin of the name and movie set. Another curiosity that can't be left out of this list is the city's name. It comes from the Aboriginal expression Coober Pedy, which means white man's hole. This expression was coined by the indigenous peoples to describe the miners who excavated the land in search of opals. The holes are, in fact, one of the city's most characteristic features, with thousands of excavations dotting the surrounding ground. Not least, it is known not only for its mines and underground houses, but also for its surreal desert landscape that looks like it's straight out of a science fiction movie. In fact, this is literally true. The city has been the setting for several film productions, including Mad Max, Beyond Thunderdome, and Red Planet. Filmmakers are attracted to the inhospitable and almost alien look of the place, which offers a perfect setting for futuristic and dystopian stories. The desert landscape, full of red earth hills, craters, and excavated land, gives the impression that you are walking on Mars. Number 9. Lack of water. You can already tell that in Coober Pedy, living underground is essential to cope with the heat of the desert and the cold of the nights, right? But here comes the question. What about water? In the middle of the desert, where every drop is a luxury, the city depends on the Great Artesian Basin, one of the largest aquifers on the planet. The water is brought to the homes through a system of pipes that runs for about 25 kilometers, connecting this vast underground reservoir to the residents' taps. But you don't just pull the water out of the ground and that's it. After being extracted, it goes through desalination and treatment processes to become potable, which increases the cost considerably. The result? Local water is one of the most expensive in the whole of South Australia. Problems with old pipes and significant water losses only complicate matters. And as there are no government subsidies, the cost falls on the inhabitants. This scarcity directly affects lifestyles. Conservation is taken seriously. No waste. The underground architecture of the houses helps reduce the need for cooling systems, saving even more water. Vegetation is practically non-existent, and the plants that survive there are all adapted to minimum water consumption. In other words, every house underground and every drop is a real treasure, a constant reminder that survival in the desert is down to the smallest detail. And so we come to the end of this journey through the unique and surprising universe of Coober Pedy. We want to know what intrigued or delighted you most about this city that lives underground. Share it with us in the comments. If you're curious to discover more secrets and places that challenge what we know, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on future videos. To those of you who have watched us so far, thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next episode of our Bello Mundo adventure.